Officer, I will talk to you.
I am not going to step outside your house.
You do not have a
We're
warrant
gonna
to be
talk
inside
right
of my house.
I'm not inside your house. Okay?
You're inside of my house.
Let me tell you why I'm right here.
Because you walked in.
No, because they opened the door and ran from me.
And
That's
I'm
why.
telling you, I am the
Okay,
adult
and I'm
here.
telling
This
you
is my home.
that now that I'm inside your house, I own your house right
you
now.
do not.
Yes, I do. What
I know my
okay,
rights.
I don't care if you know your rights.
That cop showed up to this woman's front door on a very minor loudness complaint from this woman's neighbor. He has no warrant. He's refusing to leave. He enters her home, grabs her and drags her outside, and performs a warrantless arrest. This woman is still being charged criminally. I will explain to you the binding case law that establishes without any doubt that this police officer violated this woman's constitutional rights so that you can do what's necessary, and that is share it with others and inform others. And if anyone wants an explanation for why this violates the Constitution, you can show them this video. Many of you have discovered that it can be nearly impossible to find a civil rights lawyer. Although I get calls from all around the country every day, I'm only one person, and I only take specific types of cases, and only in West Virginia. The good news is that if you need a lawyer because you've been injured, you can hire America's largest injury law firm, no matter what state you're in. Morgan & Morgan has over 1,000 attorneys in all 50 states. Because they're the biggest, they have the ability not to settle for lowball offers. Last year in Florida, they got a victim who was in a life-altering car crash, $12.2 million. The insurance only offered them $350,000. They got another victim in New York, $6.8 million. The insurance only offered the victim $275,000. Best part, their service is free unless you win. It only takes a few minutes to see if you have a case. You can submit a claim and communicate with your legal team all from your smartphone. If you've been seriously injured, it will only take a couple of minutes to start a claim with Morgan & Morgan at forthepeople.com/thecivilrightslawyer, found in the description below. This video is making the rounds on Twitter, and now it has been reported on in the Desert Sun. Now the media has gotten a response from the law enforcement agency involved. This is the Riverside County Sheriff's Office, and apparently, according to the Desert Sun, they are now investigating the circumstances that led to the woman, the homeowner in this video, being arrested in the early hours of July 4th. This video shows a Riverside County deputy refusing to leave a woman's residence despite her repeated requests for him to do so. The video shows that the deputy approached the front door of this house, reportedly due to a loudness complaint from a next-door neighbor. He rings the doorbell, he backs off, and he waits. According to the video, a minor then answers the door, sees that it's a cop, and then closes the door. But he doesn't take no for an answer. He tries to force his way into the house, and he refuses to let the door be closed. The video then shows the deputy arguing with a woman identified by the sheriff's office as Adele Shirey, 44 years old, who tells the deputy that if he does not have a warrant, then she will speak to him outside.
Okay, then back the
I'm
out
not
of my
gonna
house.
back up.
You do not have a right to be inside my
I'm
house.
not
I
gonna
will
back
talk
up.
to you outside.
Just back up and talk to her outside.
No,
You don't
guys
have
can
a
walk
warrant.
away.
No, don't talk to them.
You don't have
do
to
not
walk
have
away.
a
Let me tell
warrant
you-
to be inside. I will talk to you outside.
You want?
Officer, I will talk
I
to
am
you.
not going to step outside your house.
You do not have a
We're
warrant
gonna
to be
talk
inside
right
of my house.
I'm not inside your house.
The deputy, who just stands there inside the door's threshold, tells Shirey that he will not leave the house. He asserts his right to be inside by pointing off screen and saying, "They opened the door and ran from me. Now that I'm inside your house, I own your house right now," the deputy says in the video.
Okay?
You're inside of my house.
Let me tell you why I'm right here.
Because you walked in.
No, because they opened the door and ran from me.
And
That's
I'm
why.
telling you, I am the
Okay,
adult
and I'm
here.
telling
This
you
is my home.
that now that I'm inside your house, I own your house right
you
now.
do not.
Yes, I do.
You
Yes, I do.
What I
mean-
know my
okay,
rights.
I don't care if you know your rights.
And I'm telling you, my
So-
dog will bite you if I tell her to bite you.
Tell
So
your
I'm
dog to
asking
bite
you
you.
to back
Tell
up.
your dog to bite
and
you.
I will talk to you outside.
I'm not going to talk to you
What
outside.
the do you want? What the do you want inside my house? Bring your supervisor to my home now. Yeah, bring them all.
We'll turn
You
the music
have
down.
no
Can you
right
leave
to
us
be
alone?
inside. No, don't talk to them.
Please. We'll
You
turn
have
the
no
music
right
down.
to be
We'll
inside
turn the-
because they opened the door. They're minors. I'm the adult here. This is my home.
She
Get the
says
fuck-
she's the adult.
She's not the she's my daughter. Get the out of my
I'm
home.
not going to get out of your house.
Then call your supervisor right now.
415 noise.
After Shirey points at the deputy, he grabs her and pulls her onto the front porch before putting her in handcuffs.
And put me to the ground. I double dog dare you.
Touch me.
This is my home,
I didn't touch
bro. You're in my house.
I am telling
You're
you.
in my house.
Hey,
Don't do
chill,
that.
chill,
You're in my
chill.
house. I didn't touch you, her. Did
No,
I
stop,
touch
stop,
you?
stop,
Did I touch
Stop!
you?
No, no,
Did I
stop! You
touch
can't do anything.
Did I
Sorry,
touch
you're
you?
just gonna make it worse.
Did I ever touch you?
The sheriff's department says that she was ultimately booked into the jail for resisting arrest and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. It appears from the video that Shirey did not touch the deputy throughout the confrontation and that the deputy is the one who initiated contact. The sheriff's office declined to answer questions about the deputy's conduct that is depicted in the video. This is what the sheriff's office said in a statement. This incident occurred over a month before being posted to social media and only days before the arraignment of the individual arrested for delaying/obstructing an investigation and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. All body-worn camera footage has been obtained, and the sheriff's office says it will conduct a thorough investigation to determine if discipline is warranted. So those are the facts. The neighbor calls the cops because of a loudness complaint. Cop shows up, rings the doorbell. Minor opens the door, closes the door. That apparently offends the police officer, and he tries to force his way into the house. Mom comes to the rescue, asserts her rights, and the cop doesn't care. He comes in, grabs her, ultimately drags her outside, and performs a warrantless arrest. So the problem here, the issue here is that the officer had no warrant to enter the home, had no warrant to arrest the woman. Why does that violate the Fourth Amendment? You don't have to take my word for it. California is in the Ninth Circuit. The main case in the Ninth Circuit that applies here is called U.S. versus George, and it's from way back in 1989. This George case is actually pretty interesting. So on December 24th, 1986, at approximately 1 in the afternoon, a police officer named Kartinen participated in the investigation of an armed robbery that had just occurred at the Security Pacific National Bank in Long Beach, California. And while there, he interviewed the witnesses who described the assailant and explained to him that before exiting the bank, the assailant had told everyone to tell the police that the Orange County Kid had been there and also Merry Christmas. Now that cop talks with some other cops. Now they think they know who this guy is. And they go and they start surveillance on his house. And when they eventually see him, they just sort of barge in, arrest him. I believe they shot him in the process. And they did all of that without bothering to go get a warrant. And here is what the Ninth Circuit said about the law that equally applies here. Warrantless arrests in the home are presumptively unreasonable and they're prohibited by the Fourth Amendment. A warrantless arrest may be reasonable for Fourth Amendment purposes, however, if exigent circumstances justify their failure to obtain a warrant. So when this officer intruded into the house and arrested this woman, if there's a lawsuit or if there's a criminal case, the government bears a twofold burden. The burden shifts. Now the government, because they did not have a warrant, must show probable cause to secure the residence, and also, secondly, it must show the existence of exigent circumstances to excuse the lack of a warrant. The first part of that, probable cause, requires a reasonable belief, evaluated in light of the officer's experience and practical considerations of everyday life, that the suspect committed a crime and is to be found in the place to be searched. Now, secondly, exigent circumstances, for the government to demonstrate that, those are defined as those circumstances that would cause a reasonable person to believe that entry was necessary to prevent physical harm to the officers or other persons, the destruction of relevant evidence, the escape of the suspect, or some other consequence improperly frustrating legitimate law enforcement efforts. The exigencies must be viewed from the totality of the circumstances known to the officers at the time of the warrantless intrusion. Exigent circumstances necessarily imply that there is insufficient time to get a warrant. So officers don't need to wait for a warrant if they reasonably believe that a suspect is currently endangering the lives of themselves or others, or currently in the process of destroying evidence. If they take the time to go get the warrant, that evidence will be destroyed or those individuals may be harmed. Or there can be situations where a crime has occurred and police officers have chased the suspect from the scene of the crime to the home, which is just another kind of exigent circumstances if there was a scene of a crime and a chase. But the Ninth Circuit has said that where the police trace a suspect, not chase, trace a suspect to his home, the claim of hot pursuit is not convincing because there's no immediate or continuous pursuit of that individual from the scene of a crime. In this case, the officer seems to have been relying on that theory, that it was sort of a hot pursuit situation, and that he was able to chase the kids, the minors, inside the house when they tried to close the door on him. However, this would likewise be unconvincing because there is no scene of the crime and no chase that took place from a scene of a crime outside the home to inside the home. It just really doesn't apply at all, except maybe in this officer's mind. Now, as for the traditional exigent circumstances analysis, again, we look at two things. One, was there probable cause to even arrest this woman? Well, it was a loudness complaint, whatever that was. I haven't heard the 911 call. There may be more facts that make it sound more serious than this video did. At the end of the day, I think the only facts we know are that it was some sort of Karen call, the neighbors being too loud. And that's not necessarily a crime, certainly not a serious crime. The point is that at the time the officer knocked on the door, he had no probable cause to arrest the mom that was inside the house. And she wasn't arrested for the loudness complaint. She was arrested for the interaction that he had with her. Most importantly, there is no factual basis for believing that if he had probable cause, that he didn't have time to go get a warrant. There was no indication that anyone was in any immediate danger. There's no indication that evidence was going to imminently be destroyed if he took time to get a warrant. The reason for that is because there was no allegation that any serious crime, if any, had been committed. Now, in the George case, there was an armed robbery at a bank. That was involving a serious crime, and the Ninth Circuit still held that the officers violated the Fourth Amendment, that they needed to go get a warrant. So even that case did not meet the exigent circumstances burden that the government has to meet. This one does not even come close. And yet an entire month apparently went by from the time that this happened and this woman was arrested and taken to jail, and the sheriff even finding out that this had taken place. That just illustrates why this officer was able to completely disregard the Bill of Rights in the way that he did. This is another one of those situations where the sheriff is now complaining to the media that, well, nobody said anything earlier. It wasn't until it went on social media that people were outraged. I mean, here you have a video of a police officer, and there's no doubt violating the Fourth Amendment. There's no doubt. Entered the home and arrested the woman with no sort of any type of warrant. That is presumptively unconstitutional. She was clearly asserting her rights. He clearly responded that he didn't care about her rights. How do we reconcile that? That is presumptively a constitutional violation, and only under certain very difficult circumstances can the government rebut that presumption and show that it was necessary because it was an emergency type situation involving some serious crime or threat of danger or injury. Here, this was a very unserious minor crime with a police officer blatantly violating constitutional rights and the woman being charged as a consequence, not for any crime that the officer had arrived there to investigate, but just for asserting her rights. That was the punishment that she received, and the charges are still pending. So here's what you can do. Only when this footage was shared and started to go viral did the sheriff start to make any sort of comment or even look at this case. Now, apparently they're investigating. They already should have dropped this woman's charges. So what you can do is continue to spread this footage far and wide. And if anyone wants an explanation for why this violates the Constitution, you can show them this video. And you can show them the George case, which I will link in the first pinned comment below. I hope to do a update video on this one, explaining that the charges have been dropped, that a civil lawsuit has been filed, that the officer has been terminated, maybe even prosecuted. The whole problem here is that cops just don't believe that search and seizure violations are constitutional violations. They understand that excessive force, if you beat a handcuffed detainee, they understand that's wrong. That violates their concept of the Bill of Rights. But they just don't care about stepping into the house, holding the door open, warrantless arrest, things of that nature. They only equate their violence with constitutional violations. But really, there is no more severe injury they can cause to the Constitution than violating the sacred protections of our home. That's the very foundation of our Bill of Rights, very foundation of our country. Our home is our castle. Our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.